Welcome to the People of AI podcast, showcasing inspiring people with interesting stories in the field of artificial intelligence. I'm Ashley Oldacre. Let's jump right in. This podcast is sponsored by Google. Any remarks made by the speakers are their own and are not endorsed by Google. Hi, it's Ashley here. I'm so excited to introduce you to a very special guest today, Joyce Shen. To tell you a little bit about her, she is a venture investor focused on next-gen technology and AI companies, and she's a business builder. Her expertise centers around emerging technologies, big data analytics, machine learning and AI, and cybersecurity. And she uses her blend of experience to partner with startups to set them up for success. She has published books on technology and innovation, notably From Talking to Doing, a short guide to corporate innovation success, which was published in 2019, and has a forthcoming book on AI, which we're very excited about. Since 2016, Joyce has also been an adjunct data science faculty member at the School of Information of UC Berkeley. Joyce is a board member of various technology companies and trustee of the Altman Foundation. She also serves on the Innovation Advisory Council for the World Food Program and was a member of the Advisory Board for Enterprise Estonia, Per Scholas, and Sponsors for Education Opportunity, also known as SEO, where she has mentored underrepresented students for over 10 years and continues to give back through coaching and fundraising. Welcome, Joyce. We're so excited for this conversation.
Ashley, thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm really excited to be here and talk to you about AI and what I've been doing.
Yes, and you have an incredible background, as we've all just heard, and so many different pieces coming together. And I'd love for you to talk to us a little bit about how you've gotten to this really unique place where you're combining business, technology, advances in AI, and education sort of all in one. So take us as far back as you feel comfortable.
Yeah, thanks, Ashley. I have had a nonlinear path in my career, and it all sort of came together, even though I didn't know at the time that this is the path I'm taking. And thinking about what I've done in chapters and where I spent most of my time, I graduated from University of Chicago in economics and statistics. This was a time when people were not being taught Python. We were doing everything R and learn C++. But it was a really great foundational experience in learning and how to learn. And one of the things about economics and statistics is that it really helps us to understand the world through models. And that really fascinated me. And that gave me the grounding to today, even what I'm doing. And then I didn't really know what I wanted to do after college, but I knew that I wanted to go into industry where it's really making the world run. And that was technology. At the time I joined IBM, IBM had huge presence in many of the industries and was the largest technology company at the time. And I didn't know anything about technology. I was this nerd coming out of University of Chicago, but it really helped me to immerse myself starting at that point in enterprise software, enterprise technology, really seeing how technology moves the world, things around us. And it was amazing. And that really allowed me to see technology from different perspectives. I was fortunate enough to work in IBM's mergers and acquisitions, corporate development, where I had the opportunity to work on some of the acquisitions that were the beginning or the foundational elements of essentially what we call today data science, machine learning, AI tools for industries. I was there to acquire an in-memory database. I was there to acquire one of the biggest business intelligence companies. And that really opened up my eyes to how enterprise customers are thinking about using data, how they want to use data, and how technology platforms are thinking about the future of IT workload, whether that is cloud, data, hardware, and so forth. And that experience allowed me to go into different parts of the IBM business. I was exposed to IBM Cloud. I was the first CFO of IBM Cloud Platform. I was there to see the convergence of public cloud, private cloud, a lot of things that we don't talk about today. And we see a very clear market landscape as to where things are. But at that time, more than 10 years ago, it was a beginning for all the industries and for the technology players. And from the foundational cloud capabilities, again, we now see the build out of the services that people run on cloud. And, I took a lot of that technical and business expertise and finance experience to Thomson Reuters, as you mentioned, where I really helped the company to understand how do you apply machine learning and how do you bring emerging technologies to existing data assets to make more innovative data products for industries, whether that's financial services, industrials, government, and so forth, and really think about that end to end. And of course, today I apply all of that to both investing and imparting some of my knowledge to graduate students at UC Berkeley.
Wow. Again, such a rich journey where you've taken all of these experiences that you've learned along the way and you're sort of bringing them together currently. I'd like to even go deeper and unpack, you said something just now about how you wanted to sort of figure out how the world works. You have a very as you said, non-linear path, but you're combining all of these different interests that, dare I say, are not really traditional, but that really makes sense. I'd love to learn the foundations of how you really started and how you got there, and to sort of understand yourself maybe as a young person, because some of our listeners are also younger. And so I'd love to explore that a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's a really fascinating question. I moved a lot when I was growing up. I had an international upbringing, and my father is a scientist and my mom is an academic. So I grew up in a very academic, science-oriented household where at a very early age, I was instilled in this love of learning in different ways. And that love of learning and a sense of curiosity of really wanting to understand everything around me, and coupled with going to University of Chicago where the pursuit of knowledge is truly a thing. All of that came together for me. And I remember going to college, I really wanted to go into science. I did internship in high school at Johns Hopkins, focus on pediatric conditions, and I was doing internship there while I go to high school.
Oh, wow.
For pediatric cystic fibrosis. I was interning in the lab. I was actually thinking about being a biology, computational biology. Wow. And then, of course, when I went to University of Chicago, a lot of folks were studying economics. And then I dabbled into statistics. This is really interesting. This is a way of thinking about the world using numbers, using metrics, using probabilities, understanding representation through probabilities, and just really fascinating. And of course, I didn't really know what I'm going to do with economics and statistics. But I think to your question, the love of learning, the curiosity really guided me as to what I wanted to next. I didn't really have a dead set direction, say, I must be this or must be that. I remember one of the things at University of Chicago was I said to my parents, wow, wouldn't it be cool to work for a company where they produce something that everybody uses? And at the time, IBM still had a personal computing business, and a lot of people were using the ThinkPad. And I literally said, wow, wouldn't it be cool to work for a company that produces that and, see that? But
what was that shift? Because there's I think that's the other amazing thing is you have that curiosity, but you have this almost this creativity where you're like, hey, this and this are kind of different, but let me blend them together. You mentioned statistics and economics, but you're also interested in sciences. And then you're like, oh, this business has a product that everybody uses. Again, was that just oh, I'm just a naturally curious person, I just want to explore? Was there a thread there?
Yeah, I grew up with a very different background, and I wanted to be different. A lot of my peers went to a more traditional path coming out of University of Chicago. I wanted to do something that my parents haven't done. None of my family have been technology. And through reading, and I took computer science courses at Chicago, it was just really fascinating to me to go into something that's completely different.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, at the time, Google was still smaller and there wasn't necessarily the opportunities presented to people of my generation compared to what people can do now, as I see in technology industry. I mean, there's just so much opportunities.
Right.
And at Chicago, either you go to PhD, get a PhD, you go to banking, you go to consulting, you go to academia, or you do something different. And I wanted to do something different.
Right.
And I was fortunate enough to actually go through the SEO program to get an internship my sophomore year at IBM. And I was doing procurement finance. I learned everything about procurement at the largest company in the world. And
wow.
that led me to being asked to go back and say, hey, do you want to do corporate development? And I had no idea what corporate development was. And it really opened my eyes to the exciting world of enterprise technology, software, hardware, platforms, and how global companies run and leadership.
Oh, I'm seeing it now. It makes a lot of sense how I think that jump into IBM, and as you were mentioning even before, it sort of exposed you to sort of the world of business that incorporated technology, statistics, finance, and all of these things, and helped you sort of bridge all of those interests into sort of one area. That makes sense. Okay, so you were sort of bitten by the enterprise bug, and you went back to IBM and you shared a little bit about what that experience was like. You've gotten to a point now where you can really identify, you're able to see businesses and sort of assess them depending on different criteria. It sounds like you got that experience starting in IBM. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit about that.
Yes, I was very lucky to be able to go into corporate development right after college. And that experience really gave me a highest level of strategic view into how technology companies grow. You have organic growth and inorganic growth, and how do these companies simulate external innovation. We have all these startups, they're building great things. How do large companies work with these startups? There are many different ways. And of course, now I can codify the different ways because I've seen every part of the investment cycle and along that spectrum. But at the time, it was really seeing IBM had software business, hardware business, platform, and IT services. How does a giant at that time, I think $100 billion revenue, grow year over year, continue to innovate?
Mm-hmm.
And
wow.
There's internal innovation with incredible talent, and there is external innovation of buying these companies. And it was incredible experience and gave me the skills to identifying these companies, build business case, understanding the strategic rationale, as well as a financial business model as to why a large company, tech company, will acquire a smaller company. And does it make sense? What does it mean to the product roadmap?
Mm-hmm.
What does it mean to expand the go-to-market? And then also, how do you integrate these companies successfully? Because one of the biggest drivers of acquisition, failure to acquisitions, is lack of the ability to integrate properly. And so I really learned that end-to-end process at IBM. And at the time, IBM was one of the most acquisitive companies. And this is a side story, but I think you will love this since we're talking about AI, is that right before I left corporate development, the IBM CFO asked about how do we understand what acquisitions will be successful than acquisition that will not be successful. So how do we identify companies that will have a higher likelihood of becoming successful post-acquisition? And being a statistics major and really love data, I took the data that we had at the time, I think it was for 100 acquisitions, really looked for, now we call it machine learning, like features, and trying to build, it was simple machine learning model, but really understand what are the factors that could contribute to a success of acquisition. Of course, then I didn't talk about doing this as machine learning, but it was actually, now looking back, an actual machine learning project, supervised machine learning. I was dealing with data sparsity. I was talking to all the CEOs of 100 plus acquisitions. Some of them stayed at IBM, others left, talking to the integration team, really understanding both the financial metrics, but the non-financial and operational and business elements as to how to contribute, what makes these acquisitions successful. And all of that gave me a really broad view into the trend, the future, what customers care about, as well as where the industry is going. And I took all of that strategic and M&A learning into the business unit, where I learned how to run and start business units.
Wow. Oh my gosh. That's incredible. It sounds like it was your idea also of working with a ton of data to then assess these companies, these startups, and then with that data and looking at, as you said, the different criterias, the different factors, and then being able to assess whether they would fit well within the company. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So that IBM has an actual predictive model, if you will,
right,
that they can use to apply to future acquisitions, and they can evaluate a startup inputting variables.
Oh, so you were actually developing the model to help assess.
Yeah, I develop a model. Yes.
Oh, I see. Oh, okay. So you were not just you yourself assessing, you actually helped take it to the next step and build a model to then analyze and predict whether these businesses would be successful at IBM.
Acquisition would be successful, yes, and that would be used for future use. I think it was called Prism or something, looking through the Prism.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you're the original. That's amazing. That's incredible.
But of course, at the time, I didn't say I built a machine learning model. But
right.
I think part of answer your question, there's so much opportunity
right.
to really apply data to different functional areas, M&A, finance,
right,
where I started my journey, and then take it to other places in organizations and industries.
Right. So now we're in your current role as an investor, but also as in a sense, an analyst, and then I don't know if this is the right term, but sort of an assessor of businesses and startups for mergers and acquisitions. Are you taking essentially that model that you built and apply it to other companies, or are you taking your knowledge of what would work and what doesn't work and then helping to assess? Because you worked with IBM to build the model essentially that would help analyze. And so when you went to your next opportunity, your next role, did you bring that sort of let's build a model for that company too? Or did you bring the knowledge to then advise the company?
So I cover all the bookends and I in the middle. So, at IBM, it was at the very end of it. If you think about startup life, enterprise startup,
yeah.
One of the main ways to exit is to get acquired by a Google, IBM of the world. And so I had deep experience in that part. And when I moved to Thomson Reuters, it was taking all of the corporate development, strategic lens, the operational lens from my time being a CFO, IBM Cloud, and also working with the technologists, the product managers, the sales teams to Thomson Reuters, and to bring that hybrid view to a highly technical organization so that they can really bring technology innovation broadly to all parts of the organization and also to their clients. And so what I learned at corporate development in terms of understanding what are the major trends that will drive growth, what are the major trends that will create value, long-term value for customers and for the organization, how do we come up with a framework, a data-driven framework and operational framework to assess these opportunities and then implement them and be able to scale them in organizations. That is very much a core element of emerging technology innovation, which I started at Thomson Reuters for the CTO, is you have all these amazing startups outside. There's hypes, there is noise, there is substantive innovation. What is relevant for a large organization? And what's also relevant for startup? Because you need to have that mutual interest to be able to create whether a partnership, to do an investment deal, and to build that relationship because I don't want to
Yeah.
waste the startup time. And also within the organization, it's quite complex. So kind of be able to codify
Right.
what are we looking for, why we're looking for these technology, mapping that to strategy, mapping that to industry shifts and what customer care about, and bring that into systematic analysis and programming to influence how internal stakeholders think, make decisions, and evaluate these very innovative upstarts outside of Thomson Reuters, and then figure out, is it a data partnership? Is it a technology partnership? Is it an investment? How do we do that? And how to do that makes sense for startups. And I've seen that side. And of course, now I see the other side because I'm an investor and I work primarily with early stage startups and helping them to scale. And so having the perspective from Thomson Reuters is extremely helpful in guiding the companies.
That's incredible. And I was going to ask you, like, could you give us an insight into what does make an acquisition successful or what does make sort of a partnership successful? But I'm realizing now that that question, I think, is difficult to answer because you're having to consider so many different factors. And it's really, at the end of the day, about fit, right? Does the startup fit with the bigger company? What are the criteria that the larger company is looking for? What are the criteria that the startup is looking for? And so it really just becomes a very complex match that is specific to that situation and to those businesses. Would you say that's right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think on the acquisition side, there are some different factors as to how acquisitions get integrated and so forth. But on the startup side, I think market timing is incredibly important. If companies start building applications on generative AI 5 years ago, it probably wouldn't fly just because of a lot of the infrastructure and other constraints.
Right.
So market timing, the business model, very important as well. How do you create longevity in that business? How do you create that longevity in a startup while they grow? And then people. I think people is the X factor, if you will, both at the board level, the alignment amongst board members and investors in achieving the objective, creating value for everyone who worked really hard in building this company, and the management of kind of executing the day-to-day strategy, and also the management alignment with the board of directors. Technology alignment, product alignment is important as well. I think a lot of those can be fixed. The X factor is the people, and of course, be able to have the right judgment, both the strategic and the operational thinking in building business, knowing when to dial up and dial down.
It's like this incredible puzzle that you're bringing two puzzles together, and you're really having to make sure that all the pieces fit well so that they can integrate. And so I want to go back to just one question, then I'd love to jump into more of the AI space, and we have more things we want to talk about in that topic. But it sounds to me like the main question that you're trying to answer, and you said this in the beginning when it started at IBM, is how do you continue to grow innovation? Is that the question that is kind of top of mind for everyone when companies do think about acquiring a business? Because you also said that there's in-house innovation that happens. And it's, again, I think to me, naively on the outside, I keep hearing about the most important thing in a company is continue to grow, which ties into innovation. And so is that the main question that is asked?
Yeah, absolutely. Our world moves really fast, and companies to continue to create value for their customers. And there is internal innovation, which is the existing people inside organizations create new products, sell those new products and create value. But there is also external innovation. And so the driving question for me is what technology innovation would drive the most value and why? The other way to ask this is what is the technology innovation that could create the most meaningful impact in industries to help our process to run better, to make the world better, to help us to do things differently. And with the advancement of technology, as we have seen, we have enormous opportunity to do that. And the challenge is that there's lots of noise, there's a lot of hype, and it's a question of what is the most relevant and when, and what are the considerations in assimilating that innovation, whether it's acquiring, whether it's partnering, whether it's investing. There's always trade-offs. And how do you apply both the strategic, financial, and operational lens to all of that, given the constraints, and still create value for the company and for the customers?
That makes a lot of sense. Do you have a case study of like the best and worst case examples of where that acquisition was it went incredibly well, and maybe one that in your experience went incredibly badly?
That's a really good question. I think in general, smaller acquisitions tend to be harder in showing significant value that people see it, because a lot of times it's more of acquiring very innovative technology innovation, feature, intellectual property that will really shorten the acquirer's time to build, because the startup has incredible people,
Right.
They have incredible expertise, and they really built something that is just amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And those tend to be perceived as more challenging because they're just smaller and they're what we call kind of the gap fillers, because they're filling the gaps of the strategic technology portfolio.
Mm-hmm.
I think, for example, I was fortunate enough to see the wave of acquisition consolidation of business intelligence. So, IBM and all of IBM's competitors all acquired some of the biggest business intelligence platforms at the time. This was a long time ago. But if you think about where we are today in big data analytics, machine learning, and AI for enterprise,
Mm-hmm.
one of the beginning elements, the foundational elements, was business intelligence. How do you actually bring all this data together and create intelligence out of these data to help people make decisions?
Yeah. So the foundation, as you said, of machine learning. Yeah.
The foundational elements, so these platform acquisitions that really get companies faster to market, really put a pin on the map and say, I'm here. And then I'm going to build on top of that.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, Google have done many of those successfully as well. And it's just really fascinating to see these strategy in bring external innovation to help fuel growth and bring value to customers.
Wow. Well, so since we're speaking of innovation, the latest trend of innovation is, as we all know, AI, I think specifically generative AI. And I'd love for you to talk a little bit about maybe sort of where it started for you. I mean, it sounds like, as you just said, you've been a part of it and part of the evolution for a while now, from designing your own sort of model for assessing business acquisitions to seeing the acquisitions of big data, because I remember that also being like a big thing. And now we're sort of evolving into actually implementing and using these models. And so, I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about that. And also, I'd love to know about what are some of the challenges that businesses are currently facing with regards to integrating or acquiring other AI businesses.
Great question. So there are a couple of threads. So in terms of how I got into the field, as I said earlier, it wasn't planned.
Right.
Well, I think one thread is that being, studied statistics and economics as well as quantitative finance in graduate school really gave me this strong theoretical underpinning. Statistics is a very important part of machine learning and AI. And I don't remember everything that I learned during those days, especially very theoretical, rigorous at Chicago. But I think somewhere in my brain, it's there in terms of drawing out a lot of the foundational things I was trained on. So that's one thread. The other thread is that I've seen all sides of machine learning AI products in some ways when I look back.
What do you mean, all sides?
Yeah, so one side is as someone who's acquiring these companies, really assessing them, as we talked about.
Oh, I see.
But when I became the CFO of IBM Cloud, even prior, I was working in finance and operations and managing a team. It was all data-driven. We need to give forecasts. We need to understand utilization. We need to understand different key metrics. And these are big businesses, global business, multi-billion dollars. We need to understand to the part numbers of how things work and performance. And so when I was a CFO, we were building business intelligence dashboards. We were doing predictive analytics in terms of understanding revenue, expense, people analytics. So I was on the user side, if you will, of that, and say like, I am a CFO. What data do I need? What data tools do I need? And what questions do we need to answer using data to help the business understand what they need to do next? Things need to do better, things need to change. Yeah, looking at the numbers and really understanding the questions that we need to answer as a finance team using data to the business stakeholders. So that how do they run business next quarter, next year? And it's all based on data. So that's give me kind of on the user side. How do we be that trusted business advisor using data, using data analytics tools? And to me, that's kind of the first layer of this whole wild world of machine learning AI. And, of course, we'll talk about the more sophisticated things.
Right.
And then when I was at Thomson Reuters, I really stepped into the data science and product side, but bring my end user, investor, and executive lens to that position. So it was not just about, here's a cool technology, here's the latest machine learning algorithms. Let's just apply that to all the structured or unstructured data that Thomson Reuters or Reuters News have. It was much more about why first. What is the problem? What data do we have? What are the questions our customers want to answer? How do we build new features, new data products that can differentiate the business and create more value for the customers? And then we layer on the technology, the technical analysis, which my team did. And together we can bring a full picture to the organization to say, this is where we want to invest. This is the company, the kinds of companies that we want to partner with, because this is the future, at least for the next year or 2 years. So for that opportunity, I had very much a product-centric and technologist-centric role, but bring the business and lens to that. And then as an investor, I see lots of use cases. Every business I say is a data business. Right. And just through this lens, I have the privilege of seeing how people are thinking about using machine learning to create new products. And, again, I always come back to, does it matter? Why does it matter? Who to whom does it matter? Or for whom does it matter?
So these would be questions. So if I was, the CEO of a company, I came to you and I was like, hey, AI is the big thing right now. I want to incorporate it. Those are the questions that you would ask first.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, exactly. Every company and everybody, I will argue, that will have the same machine learning workflow. We have problem framing, we have data acquisition, we have to build a data pipeline using the tools that Google has and so forth. And right. We have to find the features. We have to decide what models we want to use. We need to have a baseline. We need to be able to benchmark. We need to understand the trade-offs. And then we need to be able to explain the output of these models to the end users. There's a different way of explaining to the technical users, and there is a different way of explaining to the business users. Everyone has the same workflow. Now, there are a number of questions as to what tools do we use to build our data pipeline? What tools do we use to build the architecture? What tools do we use to deploy the model after we identify the models? And how do we evaluate the performance of these models? I think all of that are challenging, right? But the most challenging for the business, and I think this gets to sort of the second part of your question, whether it's about applying generative AI, large language models, or other machine learning techniques, is what is a problem we're trying to solve? Because ultimately, we're trying to, in my view, find the right models to the right problem for the intended user. It's matching the business problem we're looking to solve with the right machine learning models and the right deployment, versus finding the models first and then come back to understanding what problems the models can solve. I think it has to start with the problems, the questions that are ultimately really useful and meaningful to solve, and then move through that machine learning workflow step by step.
Right. So it comes back to using machine learning really as a tool to solve the problems. Right.
Yes.
And now it makes sense to me because, again, you're looking at statistics and you're processing large amounts of data, which is essentially the value, the ultimate value of machine learning. is it's helping to organize and process and help identify things within the data to then enable decisions.
Absolutely.
Now, I might say something controversial. I might say that was the main use of machine learning, but I feel like we are now turning into something so different, where we're turning into, like, if we're looking at generative AI, like diffusion models, we're looking at text-to-speech models like Bard, Imagen, ChatGPT, all of these things that are coming up. I feel like AI has transitioned into this creation space where it's no longer just used to help analyze data. That's sort of a very basic way of describing it, but it's now moving into being able to interact and almost give information a different way. I don't know. What do you think about that?
Yeah, we're definitely in a different phase of machine learning AI. I've been in this field for a very long time, and the advancement since last year just unprecedented. And
Yeah.
one thing is kind of we hear this a lot, the democratization of AI, and something you alluded to actually is that be able to bring these very complicated models to anyone.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone can write a very simple command or prompt and see the output right there after a few seconds. It's going to be very easy to build a chatbot and Q&A system.
Right.
I still come back to this framework that I outlined. I said, yes, like we have much more advanced models, and we have seen a lot of organizations building incredibly simple but very, very useful user front end to help people use these AI products, whether it's within search in Google, whether it's next to your emails and workspace, what have you.
Right. Or Khanmigo. I just discovered that with Khan Academy. Khan's just like, it's in like an assistive chatbot to help students learn too. So yes.
Yeah, exactly. At the same time, what I call kind of the industrialization of AI, think about all the data scientists, all the technical professionals who are using these models to build products at scale. They still need to start with a question.
Right.
Why are we building this chatbot? What is the value that we're gaining by making this chatbot or QA system better? There are many use cases to a lot of these models. I think it's very exciting. And, I can come up with like 100 questions. If you think about kind of the diffusion models and the large language models, it's just incredible time to be in the space in innovating using these platforms.
Right. But I guess my one question is, you have this framework for what is the challenge you're trying to solve, but is there then value for just having fun and just creating something without having anything to solve? Because I sometimes wonder if that's also a place where innovation comes from, is a place of fun, a place of, hey, I was just, creating this just because I thought it was fun and I just wanted to see where it does. And actually, it does end up bringing value that I didn't know existed. So is there a place for that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think especially now where I think everybody needs to learn machine learning AI, but you don't have to learn all the nitty-gritties about how this model is built. I tell people, go on to ChatGPT or go on to Bard, like really see how it works and ask questions, because that's really going to change how we work and how we live.
Yeah.
We already start seeing a lot of the embedded AI capabilities. In a few years, we don't even need to talk about if this is AI or not. It's just a given.
Right.
That this is part of the technology stack and is part of the product, and people are using that. But I do agree with you. I think this is also part of the reason I think why we're moving so fast is that people are having fun in experimenting with different models. And there's really kind of this open innovation approach to allow people to experiment, to bring their own domain knowledge to the machine learning AI space. And it's incredible, exciting time. I do want to briefly answer your question, Ashley, about kind of the challenges. But if you look at the enterprise side,
yes,
I don't necessarily think there are challenges, but I think they are key considerations that every organization need to wrestle with or are wrestling with. And I think the more we can do on those front, the more we can reduce the barrier of adoption of machine learning AI at scale in different industries. And the key considerations in getting organizations to reduce the barrier of adopting AI and machine learning at scale, these may not be things that we think about when we talk about machine learning AI, but to me, it is actually part of AI, broadly speaking. These are the concerns of chief data officers or chief AI officers in the C-suite: data quality, data bias, data reproducibility, data cost, the trade-offs of these models, how costly to train these models, and how to data model explainability, auditability, and reliability. And that reliability is both a technical question, non-technical question, both is it reliable, the model we're deploying, and is it reliable for our customers?
Right.
And how do we know that? And I think that also, you can extend that to responsible AI in extending the definition with a perspective on reliability.
I love that. And I actually hadn't thought about that before. Is now it's the broader definition of responsible AI covers, as you said, all of those things. It's not just, are you releasing a product that's generated by AI that is, going to be inclusive and fair and going to be responsible for your data, but it looks like that there's just so many other considerations that fall within that space. Like you were saying, business considerations, how much it costs to train, what, how the data is processed, how it's analyzed. There's like all of these different things. And so when you say that this is a challenge, could you elaborate more as to why these would be challenges? And it's an extra step to ensure that you are implementing machine learning responsibly in your business. Do you think that extra important step is beneficial to companies or more time consuming and something that companies kind of, oh yeah, well, it's secondary. Let's think about responsible AI later. Let's just deploy first and get this implemented?
Yeah, I think it's the latter, though. I think sometimes when people say, oh, responsible AI, it kind of implies that people are building not in a responsible way today. I don't think that's true. It's a fast moving field. And what I say is that no one knows everything in machine learning AI, myself included. And as we have more innovation on the technical side, we'll have more business and organizational questions. It's just a natural evolution of how these things converge ultimately for mass, like even bigger adoption, if you will. I think when we think about responsible AI is really kind of from the perspective of how do we take this innovation using machine learning AI, whether we build a new model, where we have built a new data prototype or product, how do we make that sustainable and be able to put in the hands of the end user so that they love using it and that we have that feedback loop and we can continue to learn? Like nothing's going to be perfect and we're going to make mistakes. But the more checks we can have in this workflow, in this process, the steps of going from here's a great idea or I want to like build this to we're going to deploy this, these checks to really ask a question, not just solving all of it, but just know that, okay, we're comfortable with our data quality, but if we build this again, well, we want to put our roadmap in really improve that data quality as our company matures. We understand the bias and we have done, we've taken these steps to debias, but we recognize that there are still inherent bias. So are we going to retrain the model? Are we going to put in additional guardrails at the deployment phase? So there are different ways of addressing a lot of the gaps, and every organization has gaps and every business is in a different phase of adopting AI, but it's more of asking these questions, having these as part of the building blocks of building AI products. I think to me, that's responsible AI, because the more you do that, the more the business and people can anticipate together, the technical and the non-technical teams can work together, anticipate. We understand the risks, but we have these steps to be able to address them and to remediate them. And then in the next iteration or next version, this is how we're going to do it better. And this is how technology innovation works, because nothing comes out, it's perfect. And it's an iterative process.
Right. But would you say that already implementing those responsible steps is actually beneficial to business outcomes?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because I think that builds trust, building the trust between the data scientists, the machine learning engineers, and the internal business stakeholders who want to use machine learning models and to improve their business and help them to augment how they do things in a better way and to be competitive. So building that trust to say, I can rely on the models you built. I can rely on algorithms, and I understand the core elements. And if I have a question, I'm able to get that answer. And that trust helped to launch these products infused with machine learning AI. And then we'll also be able to explain it better to target users, to guide them how to use it, and set the right expectation. And that create another level of trust where it will delight the customer, but it will also give customer a sense of transparency and understanding of how these products are built and what they can do with it, and what are the considerations they should have in using these products. And I think that kind of the circle of trust is beneficial for businesses, for the builders of algorithms, for the developers and data scientists, and ultimately the value accrue at the end users, because we're giving them much better and powerful product enabled by machine learning and AI.
And then by definition, that also expands into it's financially viable as well.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Well, you've made a wonderful case for incorporating responsible AI practices from the get-go, as opposed to implementing AI and then backtracking and implementing them in hindsight.
Yeah, I think it would be hard to do in hindsight. I mean, I think technically it could be possible, but trust is a fragile thing. And I think as a society, while we still have a big gap between what we understand as machine learning AI in this room versus, vast majority of the population, people are becoming more aware of how their data are being used, what algorithms are being used, how they should ask these questions. And, we need to cater to that as we think about how to apply machine learning and AI from the get-go.
Yeah, absolutely. Gosh, that's the highlight, I think. One of the highlights of this interview. We are nearing the end of our time together. Is there anything else you would like to add? Or is there any other, we talked about being, a professor at UC Berkeley, but I don't know if we have the time to even go into that. So I will leave this open-ended with if there's anything else you'd want to add or you'd want to touch on before we end.
I think everything we talked about is something that, we're trying to teach our students at UC Berkeley. Machine learning AI to me is interdisciplinary field, where you have people who are technical, people who have domain expertise, and you have people who understand privacy, governance, product, delivery, all come together. And I think this is in part why the field is really exciting, because it actually does take multiple perspectives to build something that will stand the test of time and to create value for our society and for the people who are using these products.
I love that. What an incredible summary. AI is an interdisciplinary field, and you're right, it's bringing all kinds of folks together. And what an honor that you're a part of this and that you're leading this from a business, economic, human, technology side. So just what an honor. What a great conversation today. And thank you so much for sharing all of this incredible information. And I don't want to end.
Thanks, Ashley. Yeah, I loved this conversation. There's a lot more we can talk about, but thank you so much for the opportunity.
If you would like to learn more about our conversation or our guests, check out the links below. Please subscribe, and if you're feeling extra generous, give us a 5-star rating. We would love to hear from you, so leave us a comment. We'll read every one. Until next time, thank you for listening.